Hi, Elise Dewsberry here from New Musicals Inc. with the fifth and last in my little mini-series on collaboration. This time I'm talking about a collaboration agreement. I want to start by talking a little bit about why I think you need one, and then I'll talk a little bit about what I think it should cover. Now, let me preface this by saying I'm not an attorney. I'm not an expert on rights and intellectual property and all of that kind of stuff. But in my understanding from speaking with lawyers and other people who know what they're talking about, my understanding is that when two or more people make a decision to write a work together, there is an automatic expectation that that work is what is called merged. So if I'm a book writer lyricist and I call up my composer friend and I say, hey, let's write this show together, and my composer friend says, okay, as far as the world is concerned, we now have a merged product. Everything that we write belongs to both of us equally. It's merged. What that means is if after I've worked with this composer for a little while, I decide, I don't like the music that this person is writing for my musical, so I'm going to take my book and lyrics elsewhere and find someone else to do it. The composer would be within their rights to say, no, wait a minute, we agreed to write this together. You can't now take the idea away because this is now our idea. It's a merged idea, and I won't let you write it with anyone else. If you don't want to write it with me, then you don't get to write it. I have seen this happen, and it happens. Sadly, it does occasionally happen. The way to avoid this, the way to make it clear that you do not intend merger, and let me just say, you don't, generally speaking, when you sit down to write a show, you might think, going into it, you might think, well, of course, my composer and I want to merge this right from the beginning. We're good friends. We're on board with the same idea. We want this to work out. Well, back to the marriage analogy. Yeah, sometimes they work out and sometimes they don't, and sometimes you wind up needing a divorce. What I'm talking about today is a prenup. You need a prenup to make the divorce easier, and it's better to do the prenup when you're friends and you can discuss things logically and reasonably than it is to try and do the prenup when trouble happens and people start arguing. So what your prenup is, what you want is, you want to say that we're starting down this road together. We don't know for a fact that we're going to wind up continuing on this road together, and there are many different reasons why you might not. It could be because, as a book writer lyricist, I don't like the music the composer's giving me. It could be because the composer gets really busy and needs to move on to another project and says, I'm so sorry, but go ahead and do this. And it can be done amicably. It certainly can, but to protect against it not being amicable, usually what teams want is to prevent merger from happening until you've had a major production. In other words, you've written a first draft, you've had workshops, the creative team is really solidified. We know who it is, and we've now had a major production at a regional theater. Now we can say, okay, now it's merged. Now nobody can separate these pieces. Nobody can now say, we want a new composer. We want to do a new production. They can say it, but the composer is within their rights to say either no. They would be within their rights to say no, or they would say, yes, but you're going to have to, you have to cut me in on that deal financially. That's the contract would detail all of that. But generally speaking, you don't even want that merger to take place until you've reached a major production point or some later point, certainly not in the early development days. But because of the fact, what I was saying earlier, that the world assumes that merger has happened as soon as you make the agreement, what you need to do is prevent merger or delay merger. You need to define when it is you want this merger to happen. And, I'm sure there are people out there with, better legal minds than I who are saying, no, you got this wrong, Elise. But it doesn't hurt to say, to go into a relationship with a very simple agreement. It can be a one-page agreement at the very beginning that basically says, I'm agreeing to write the book and lyrics for this show, and you're agreeing to write the music, and we agree that I own the book and write the book and lyrics, and you own the music, and that's sacrosanct. You can walk away with your music, I can walk away with my book and lyrics. That's what I would recommend early. This can be a really simple. This is only a preliminary contract, so don't start screaming and yelling. You're going to need a better one later. But If it seems too premature to be talking about all the details that come in a full collaboration agreement, you can have a very simple one. I'm just going to look, the one that we have when we have people write their 15-minute musicals that are part of our collaborative workshop at New Musicals Inc., we have them sign a very simple agreement that just says, the parties agree to collaborate in the writing of a 15-minute musical project as part of the core curriculum. At the end of July, ownership of each of the crafts, book, music, lyrics, reverts to the individual writers. That is to say that a writer who has been assigned the responsibility of book by shall retain ownership of the book portion of the musical project. A writer who's been assigned music shall retain music, lyrics retain lyrics. And then everybody signs that and you file it away. What that means is when you finished, when you finished this very short collaboration, if someone says, I love the music I wrote, but I want to use it for a different show, they can walk away without asking anyone's permission. The lyricist can say, I want to find a different composer to set these songs. They can walk away with their lyrics without asking for anyone's permission, and the book writer can decide to go get another team together to write the same story without anyone's permission. Otherwise, it can become an issue, and I've seen it happen. Now, that very simple form will only serve you in the very, very early developmental stages. Pretty soon, you're going to want a more complicated collaboration agreement that very clearly lays out the percentages of that you're going to get of royalties, which generally speaking, the starting place is a third book, a third lyric, and a third music. But that's just a starting place. Teams can negotiate different things if they want. You can negotiate it however you want. That's usually the starting place. But you want to lay that clearly out in a contract. And you want to lay out things like subsidiary rights, like, if a song gets picked up to be used somewhere else outside of the book. There are many, many different ways to do this. These are much more complicated. I'm not going to try to tell you what that contract should say. There are templates for that out there. The Dramatists Guild and some other places have templates available. When you get to a really serious place, it does not at all hurt to have lawyers look at it. I know that costs money, but it's a good idea to have that in place. But if you feel like you're just getting started and it seems premature to be bringing in lawyers and multi-page contracts, at least make sure you get a one-page contract that clearly says that you are not intending this project to be merged until a later date. And you can make that contract last a year or last until you have a workshop or until you have time to put a more full contract together. But I would say the minute you've decided to write something, get at least that one-page agreement of clarifying who owns what. And then you'll find the time later to do something more elaborate. But I would certainly not recommend that you push your way through to a first draft without having something written down on paper. I wish you the best, that it would never happen to, that divorce will never come to your collaboration, but I have seen it happen often enough to know that you want to protect against it at a time when you're still friends and before anything comes up that changes that. So collaboration agreements are a necessity. A simple one is okay for getting started. A more comprehensive one is better for going forward for the long term. But one way or the other, get yourself a collaboration agreement. And that's the end of my series on collaboration. And we'll catch you next month for something new. Thanks. Bye-bye.